Welcome to a new build video. Today we're looking at Superclass, top 100 on Europe right now, and he's playing a melee frost character with Frostwave, and that is being linked with spell activation on attack hit to Frost Shock. So the shock will appear on the enemy that's actually being hit, so that is quite cool. Yeah, if you're interested in this melee frost style, then this is the build for you, so let's check it out. So on the main skill Frostwave here, quick attack, focus, resistance, elemental damage amplification, mana storm, and of course spell activation on hit. And on Frost Shock here, strike, resistance, elemental damage amplification, and also mana storm. And it is also linked to increased gold chance, but if you want more damage, you can also add another spell like area of effect that is mostly for like some damage, but mostly also for the bigger AoE. Blizzard here is also being used on cooldown, and that is also linked to elemental damage amplification, mana storm, and the gold gain chance here. For the seal, he is using Seal of Striking, big damage boost for any strike skills, and Seal of Elemental Domain for the tankiness. It reduces elemental damage taken. And both of these seals are linked to dampen resource. Fighter's Wrath is being used with versatility, enhance effect, increased duration, and time acceleration here. And on top of that, he's using Siphon Life for lifesteal as a defensive cooldown, also linked to increased duration, time acceleration, and buff activation when hit. On the shout side here, he's using Shout of Provocation, and that is linked to Shout of Power, time acceleration, and enhance effect. For movement skills, the combo of roll and leap attack with disarm and use count. I think that's all of the skills, so let's look at the gear here. The weapon of choice is axes. This axe here is a magic find axe, so you don't need it for the build, it just increases your drop rate. This is mostly for farming easier maps. Usually you would be using axes like these here that give you way more damage for the harder content. So this here is only slotted in for easier content usually. So here, health absorb on attack hit, attack damage, speed, elemental penetration, and attack damage. On the helm, Afro's Veil. On the spaulders here, lots of health, some armor, and some cold damage, not too much though. So ideally you would want tier 10, that will be around 60. So tier 10 is almost double or even double as good as tier 7, so keep that in mind. And then 2 good resists, of course, some area damage here as well. On the body armor, full plate, full armor based, some cast resist on the enchant, and +3 attack damage skill rune level. Also a big health and triple resist, and a legendary health here on top of that. So insane body armor actually. The gauntlets here have attack speed with some bleed damage amplification, but I think that is mostly used for hitting the attack speed amplification node here, and then even more attack speed here, so crazy amount of attack speed, some hit rating, some good lightning resist. Movement speed 40%, some melee damage, not too good roll here. Hit rating, double resist, so quite powerful. For the axe here, Garnida's axe here, or for the damage option you would choose a second one in this kind of style of weapon. Silver coin also mostly a gold farming item here. So usually you would run a rare base with elemental damage and lots of cold damage and resists and some health. Hero's Procession for the belt here with the movement speed amplification and some decent stats. You can also use a life belt here with potion effect. This is mostly used for farming easier content since the movement speed will be nice, but it's not really needed for farming the hard content. You would want a life belt that gives you a lot of tankiness with resist, triple life, stuff like that, or with the potion effects if you need mana or health regeneration. Also the rings here are item drop rings So instead of these, you can use the elemental damage rings if you choose to do so. Cold damage, elemental damage, attack speed, cold gain chance. Here also attack speed, lots of health, some damage, some cold resist. Okay, let's look at the charms here. Caster's Blessing with the elemental damage amplification and elemental damage taken decrease is put up to 140%. And then there's Boreal on 20 with armor, and Tamos on 20 with 10% bonus life. So lots of elemental damage here, lots of health, lots of damage here. Quite a lot of damage here as well. Lots of damage up here. So 4 caster zones. 1 tier 5, the rest is tier 6. Then the Hamas one here with almost 80% elemental damage and 10% health. And a tier 6 Boreals for the bonus armor. And yeah, that's about that. Spell hit rate. And in the middle here, the attack hit rate. And the crit on the Chaos Star. But the Chaos Star doesn't matter too much. It's mostly used for hitting 140% here. Okay, let's look at the talents. So the stats are being almost equally split here. And on the first thread, taking all of the nodes up here. On the second, all of the elemental damage nodes. On the third over here, he's taking some hit rating, some health, some damage. On the fourth, he's actually splitting that into attack speed, area of effect, damage, attack hit rating, melee damage. And up here, strike damage. Oh, really interesting. That's a good idea. And also the area of effect here. So next up, you need to go in here, but for now we're looking at this. Some armor, some health, some elemental damage. So all of that is good stats that we want. On the sixth, cold penetration, of course, and some melee node with the attack speed. Let's look at that. Health and fist damage taken dampening for some tankiness. On the seventh, debuff rate for more chills and shock rate. Damage against shocked enemies. And yeah, even more shock rate and shock effect. Shock increases damage that the enemies take, but you need to have some lightning damage to apply that. For some strength here with 30% area damage and 40% damage up here. That is stat based, that's why you are splitting the stats equally, so that you can hit above 200 on every stat. Lots of damage here and some area of effect. And then the final talents here. The dual wielding stats for elemental damage. Some attack speed over here. So this is basically a dead stat, except for Blizzard, which is cast on a cooldown, so you don't really need cast speed for that. And yeah, lots of damage still, but this one point is a little bit sad that we cannot use that more efficiently. And yeah, here, crazy amount of health, but you disable health regen. Okay, let's look up here. Acceleration for crazy amount of speed and movement speed. Convert mana to fix all of the mana issues. Overpower for penetration and damage. On the second here, knowledge for lots of damage. And mostly this here is important for the elemental damage amplification. It increases the elemental damage you take though, so be aware of that. Up here some area damage amplification. So these are big damage boosts. And then here, additional lightning damage on every hit. That makes it so that any attack that you do, or any damage that you apply, also hits the enemy with lightning damage, which means we shock the enemy. This is also the reason why skilling shock in here. So once the enemy is shocked, he will take bonus damage from any damage after that. So since all of our attacks apply some form of lightning damage, all of our attacks can shock. Quite a powerful thing. That's why we take this over the bonus cold damage. Even though cold damage scales better with our build, the lightning damage, applying the shock, will be a big damage boost compared to that. Okay, so yeah, that's why we take this, some elemental damage and some even more elemental damage over here. You have higher mana cost though, but since we're running the convert mana, that should be okay. And yeah, for the relic here, Avatar of Sefta with Chaos Resist and Mental Stimulation for the damage amplification. We take some more damage, but we have quite some tankiness, and it scales up our damage by a lot, so this is quite powerful, with recovery on it and increased buff effect. And for the passive, as the second relic here, the Avatar of Boreal, I assume he wants the level 30 passive here, because you can only have one relic active, and the relic that isn't active applies the passive effect. So yeah, Avatar of Boreal is usually being used for big DPS on its own. So yeah, I advise you pick a second relic that gives you a good passive. Maybe he also wants to use the Avatar of Sefta as the passive later on, and the Avatar of Boreal, since it has huge DPS, as the main active relic once he levels that up more. Yeah, looking at the stats here, we can see 8000 health, no barrier, maxed resist, lots of armor, lots of cast resist actually, some dodge rate that is not being disabled, so that's quite good, on top of all of the other defensive. And Frostwave here doing 2.5 million damage. And let's see, is it here? Yeah, a tiny little bit of damage. But the Frost Shock actually also doing a lot of damage. And that is not counting the attack speed, because it's scaling with cast speed. So the attack speed is almost double that, so that should be around 1.5 million DPS on 2 to P. So yeah, as you can see, on 9 it is 100 million, so around 10 million single target DPS. Actually here, max single target damage is 5.5 million, but I'm not sure if that is DPS or damage on total, but it should be around 10 million.